The Countdown Conspiracy, Chapter 17, Part 1. With all the devastation seen in the past 24 hours, space programs worldwide have been decimated to an extent we likely don't yet fully understand, a newscaster says. One thing is clear, though. It will be decades before they'll be rebuilt to previous levels. The short-lived World Peace Treaty has come to a tragic end. Turn it off, Tamaki says to Esteban. Esteban looks at him through teary eyes. But turn it off, he demands. I don't want to hear any more. Esteban jumps, startled, but does as he says. The screens flicker to black, and not one of us moves. My eyes continue to well up, and part of me remembers that we're low on water and should be conserving it. Somehow, though, I don't feel like my tears are a waste. Now what? Rahim asks. No one answers. I grab hold of Ruby. She gives me a hug as my breathing comes in uneven spurts. 112 dead, plus the 2 from the helicopter attack. 114. Could we have done anything to stop this? We go to Mars. My eyes snap open. Everyone is staring at Anna. What? Tamaki asks. Anna takes a deep breath, her shoulders straightening. I said, we go to Mars. But how? Esteban wipes tears out of his eyes. And why? Najma asks. The spaceplane's dim lighting casts shadows on all our faces. But even without it, I think we'd look exhausted. This is our only chance, Anna says. You heard them. Space programs are destroyed. By the time they rebuild, we might be too old. Or too frightened to try again. But if we go now, we can still do what we're meant to do. We can prove that they haven't scared us away from our dreams. I find my eyes drifting out the dark windows at the front of the spaceplane. We're on a trajectory to Mars, but Mars is nowhere nearby yet. That's another 9 months away. We'll never make it, I say. For one thing, we don't have proper landing equipment. Actually, Tamaki says slowly, we could land, possibly, if we get our re-entry runners aligned and use that 3D printer of yours to build the final components. We have 9 months to get the math right. What about water? Najma asks. And food? The recycler's almost repaired, Rahim says, and we have the basics to get our food laboratory up and running. We do, Esteban reluctantly agrees. But what about when we land? I say. Will we have enough oxygen? If we get a few instruments fixed, we might be able to produce enough to last a while, especially if we tap into the ice on Mars. Rahim sighs. I just don't like it. Neither do I, Najma says. Have you all forgotten that if we managed to land on Mars, we'd have absolutely no way to get home again? I haven't forgotten. What home do we have left? Anna asks, crossing her arms. Our lives were supposed to be dedicated to the world's space programs, and those are gone, unless we act now. I narrow my eyes at her. So you're okay with going to Mars, just to die there? I think we owe that much to our mentors, Anna says quietly, and any further tirade I have is cut short. She's right, isn't she? Lizzie and Kreshkov died for us. They died for us. I use a hand to steady myself on the wall. I don't want anyone to think we're too scared to finish our mission, Tamaki says. After a moment's pause, but this is, why don't we take a few hours to think about it, Anna says. And mourn. I nod. That, at least, sounds reasonable. I float down the hall, aimless. I pass Tamaki, who is channeling his anger into building a second water recycler. Then Esteban, who is doing nothing. I pause, watching him. I've never seen Esteban's face so devoid of emotion. He stares at a gray wall, his only movement the occasional blink. After a few moments, I can't bear the sight of him like that, and continue on my way. Eventually, I find myself in the meditation cabin, staring blankly like Esteban. But instead of facing a wall, I look out the windows at the stars. It's not really a cabin for meditation. Or maybe it is if you're into that sort of thing. All I know is that we were building it in to give us cadets a private area for contemplation during our long trip to Mars. I installed the ventilation a few weeks ago, staring out these very windows into the hangar back on our island. While I've thought it before, I think that right now, for the first real time, I'm consciously experiencing how time is relative. Then again, it could just be a trick of the darkness. Moving through space doesn't feel much like moving at all, because nothing around us seems to move. Yet I know with every second we draw closer to Mars. Does Anna actually have a point for once? We are destined for Mars, after all. At least they are. If we go home, who's to say we'll ever get this chance again? Will we ever fulfill the mission that Lizzie and Krushkov trained us for? Cling tightly to my flight suit, with Ruby attached to my side. We float together, and I use my legs to push against the wall and keep myself relatively upright. When the door hisses behind me, I startle. Sorry, Rahim apologizes. I didn't know you were in here. It's okay, I say. We can share. He nods and shuts the door, rubbing his arms. The insulation isn't the best in here. I didn't realize anyone else knew about this room, I say. Rahim floats to my side, hooking his foot on the floor loops to steady himself. Medical team wanted it in, right? Rahim's our medical officer. Of course he knew. How are you doing? He asks. I shrug, going back to looking out the big paneled window in front of us. Okay, I guess. You? Okay, he replies. We're quiet again. After a few moments, Ruby pokes me in the side from the lack of activity. I wave at her to settle, and she gives me a slow wave in return. I hope Sasha's okay, Rahim says. Me too, I say. I haven't let myself think about it, but the fear hasn't left me for a moment since I heard about all the attacks. And I really wish the others weren't so suspicious of him. But now that his uncle is dead, maybe they won't think he's involved. Rahim finishes for me. I nod. Please be okay, Sasha. Please don't be dead. But I don't know who I'm kidding. He mysteriously vanished just before a giant plot unfolded to cause terror and murder worldwide. Probability says I still can't let myself think about it. Do you miss it? Rahim asks after another moment. Miss what? I ask, turning. Our training base. Earth, he replies. Home. Oh. No. Well, yes. I mean, I haven't let myself think about it much. I grimace. There's a lot I can't let myself think too much about. I guess that makes sense. Then he's back to gazing out the window, so I do the same. This is one of the longest non-group based conversations I've ever held with Rahim. He's always so quiet, and we've just never had much time to talk before, one-on-one. Plus, he's a he, and not like Esteban, who anyone can talk to, or Tamaki, who no one can talk to. Rahim is in between. I never know how to approach him. But here we are, grieving together. I miss my home, he says, startling me again out of my silence. My real home, not our base. I miss my family. I blink. Rahim's never talked much about his home. I did see his family briefly the day we lifted off. Was that really just yesterday? Feels like a lifetime ago. My parents, they saw a lot of stuff when they were younger. Rahim continues. Back when the world was at war, a lot of bombs, explosions, that sort of thing. They saw people die. He goes silent again, and the question I'd never had the chance to ask finally surfaces. Rahim, did anyone die when you were attacked on the way to the training island? Rahim doesn't respond right away, and I immediately wish I'd just kept quiet. Eventually, though, he turns to face me, holding on to a gray pipe by the side of the cabin to keep steady. I've put a lot of thought into this, Rahim begins. This whole situation, that is, the attacks, they've only really ever gone after you and me, not the others. There has to be a reason. He looks back out towards space. I watch him. That's true. It wasn't just me who was targeted, not at first. So when did that change? And why did I never think to talk to Raheem about any of this before now? You know what my parents always said? He asks. I shake my head and he continues. They said that the best way to honor the dead is to live. I try to reply, but can't find the words. Raheem's advice echoes around the empty cabin like a penny dropped into a deep, deep well. Stars are steady points of light out here in space. They're no twinkle effect like on Earth with our atmosphere. Yet even so, my thoughts drift back to warm summer evenings in Ohio, smacking at mosquitoes, looking through Mom's telescope in the backyard. She bounces baby Emmeline on her knee, and I adjust the focus so that Mars comes into view. It's just a big red dot. Aw, I wanted to see the rovers. My mom laughs. Oh, honey, you can't see that much detail through this scope. Maybe when you grow up, you can go to Mars and see the rovers in person. Really? You think so? I don't see why not. Mars, my sister chimes in, leaning to grab at the telescope with chubby toddler hands. You have a brother, right? And two sisters, I ask, still watching space out the window. Raheem nods. Two baby sisters. I have a baby sister, too. Hold on to Ruby, though she's not really a baby anymore. She just turned 6. Raheem smiles. My littlest sister is 2. She's talking now, but back before I left for training in January, she was still just babbling, I supply. Yes, he says, babbling. I remember when Emmeline babbled. She's growing up so fast. Think back to the day I left Ohio and the sniffling hug my sister gave me in the airport. You're coming back, right? Pinch my arms tighter across my chest. We can't go to Mars. My voice is barely louder than a whisper. It's a one-way trip. Even to avenge Lizzie and Krushkov, we can't just go there to die. You have your brother and your baby sisters. I have Emmeline. We both have our parents. They're all waiting for us to come home again. I keep my eyes focused on the blackness in front of me, waiting for his reaction. I agree, Raheem says. We have to go back. Mars isn't home. It's a dream. A nice one that we don't have to give up. But home is where we have people to return to. Exactly, I say. We should go find the others. Yeah, I agree. I turn and we head out the door back into the main cabin. Along the way, we run into Esteban. I'm relieved to see he's back to moving around, but my shoulders fall slightly when I notice his eyes are just as dead as before. Hey, guys. Hey, Esteban, I say gently, shuffling Ruby on my side as she continues to float forward once I'm stopped. We did some thinking. We decided we need to go home, Raheem says. We want to see our families again. Oh, good, Najma says, coming out of another side cabin and floating over to us. I was hoping someone else would be voting for that. Besides, this isn't our only chance to go to Mars. If we can pilot this space plane back home and land it, then that's one piece of equipment they haven't blown up. We can use Ambassador to rebuild and prepare for a future mission. Yes, I say. Brilliant, Najma. I hadn't even thought of that. What do you think, Esteban? Raheem asks. We all study him carefully. Najma inches closer to him, her eyebrows pinching in concern. Okay, Esteban says. Okay, I ask. That's it? Yeah, he answers. His eyes drift away. How do we do it, though? We find everyone and put our minds together. I offer Esteban a smile. We're 6 geniuses. We should be able to figure this out. He just nods once more. I meet Najma's helpless stare, grimacing in sympathy. It's a plan, then, Raheem says. Now, to find Tamaki and see what he